So I've been working through the spirit of the ACARA document for a couple of years, and speaking to Larry, for example, really great to have someone to help me clarify my thinking on that. And so I reckon I've never been worried about the framework at all. I think it's a seamless introduction, a seamless passover into what we do already, with apart from a couple of the descriptors in digital stuff and digital technologies, which are going to take a little bit of work, but the rest of it is pretty good. So what we've done at our school is we've trialled it already, but we're also teaching it now. And I'm just going to put one up now, given the time we've got. But there are 3 examples. One here, 2 Year 8 courses and a Year 10 Wood course that we've ACARA-ized or parts of. And I've done a digital technologies one, which I don't think I can show you now because it's on my Mac. But again, I can whiz that through to you if you like. How do we go about it? Well, thankfully we've done it as a faculty. It's a great thing. We sat down and garbaged on about reading the document and looking at all the key parts of the document, looking at the aims and the goals of it all, but acknowledging that what we do already is great and it fits. So don't panic about it, is what I said to the guys. And I say the guys, it's inclusive of Narelle, who's just a wonderful teacher, and everyone's cool with that. So we didn't panic too much about it. This is the ACARA document, the template, and it's really useful to use the ACARA document in this way because it tells you what information you need to know if you don't know it. That I like that because I keep forgetting. So this is a step ladder. So it's materials, Year 10, and we've looked at the achievement standards and we've just picked out the bits that we like in the achievement standards that we think is appropriate to what we're teaching. Yeah? Just singing out if I'm saying anything that you don't get. So that's just a cut and most of this is cut and paste in the document. Yeah. Okay. Then we found the discrete content descriptor, and it's 10.6 in this case, from the document. And you probably know the document, and there's several content descriptors in there. Underneath those content descriptors are the elaborations. And remember that the elaborations are just someone's idea of how you might satisfy that content descriptor. You can write your own. Okay, so if you don't think it works, you can give it a crack yourself. That's why it's a good course. Right?
That's right, yeah. Perfect.
Yeah. So that's what we have chosen, and you can see how we've identified that as we go through. And then looking at the content strands and sequences, the other content strands there, and we're looking at materials, technology, specialisations, and planning, producing, and evaluating, because the planning, producing, and evaluating, of course, is really critical to what we do. Let's not lose that. You know the stuff I was talking about that 5 minutes ago, that folio, that's all over ACARA. Right in it. Right in it. So we won't be throwing any of that out. We'll be going seamlessly again through that folio. In fact, we still have the folio top down, 8 to 12 inclusive. Obviously, we do 100 word one in Year 8 or something like that through to 2000 word. But same headings. Scaffolding, teaching, and all that sort of stuff. So anyway, that's where that fits in there. Nothing of the digital stuff. And then over to the general capabilities and cross-curricular priorities, numeracy, including from creative thinking, testing and selection, method of joint construction, accurate use of measurement and numerical problem solving. So they're the evidence in. And what we haven't got on here is which one of the cross-curricular priorities, but it would be sustainability. Okay.
So it has to have one?
Yeah. Yeah, it would be sustainability. The sustainability fits with us, doesn't it? It's pretty easy. But with the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander histories and cultures, that's also really interesting and really good. When you look at sort of weaponry making, for example, stuff like that, the technologies, the construction methods, the design principles behind a boomerang, pretty cool. But we use sustainability most of the time. Background information is just a course descriptor, you just write that yourself. Task features similarly. This is a task associated with it, not the whole thing, task summary. You're welcome to look at this, but I'm sure you don't want to read it right now. How do you assess it? Well, there are constraints and considerations, and there's the task outlined again, probably a little bit over the top. We put this on day map. Suppose you'll use day map there so that parents can read it too. You want to have a look at it. There's 10.6 again, the relevant parts of it. And moving on to our rubric. Okay, so we've designed the rubric around the assessment standards, and it's just a bit of a play on the words. And you'll probably notice that I've cheated badly here. In fact, this is one of the other teachers. This is the young Patrick McKay, who's just a wonderful young teacher. This is actually his course. But I said to him, why don't you use these headings, Paddy? Sophisticated, capable, competent, partial and attempted, because they come straight from SACE. Look, page 554.3. As you get used to the content descriptors in ACARA, you'll change them and make them probably a little bit more ACARA-ized, but however, they fit fine.
Does ACARA use performance standards similar to...
You generate an assessment rubric from the content descriptors,
okay.
And
there's not a set one. Every teacher or school does it themselves.
No,
okay.
Yeah. From the achievement standards, you go back and look at those right back at the start of the document.
Because we've done that already. We've sort of worked backwards from stage 2, 1, 10, 9, 8.
Yeah.
And we've already got that part developed.
Yeah, perfect. So you go back to the achievement standards, the relevant achievement standards, and work back and unpack it, and make it your own, I think, and it works beautifully. So what's important to you about making that step ladder, or that CAD drawing, or that circuit, or whatever it is that your kids are doing, you can make it work and do beautifully. Now, of course, just from a coordinator's viewpoint, sorry, someone have a question?
Oh, I know we're not going to have time to do this, but I was hoping you're going to talk about the digital technologies, because that's a big sticking point.
Yeah, okay, so, well, I'm teaching in F1, I'm doing, I wasn't swearing as a matter of fact, in F1, I'm doing a digital technologies course. So I've written it, I've got it, and happy to share.
How does that apply to the, I'm really worried about the year 8s. How that's going to apply in relation to, and/or statements and things like that.
Yeah.
They're asking
I think, yeah, there are. There's a few things in there that worry me a little bit.
Yeah.
But in terms of accountability and mapping what all the kids are going to do from foundation to 8 inclusive, how hard is that going to be? It's not going to happen. So we're going to write hybrid courses where we'll pick a couple of digital parts, put them in with technologies, present the unit of work, rather than try and structure up too many discrete digital technologies courses, because those of you who've had a look at it will realise that it is heavily worded towards the IT side of things, and we just have to be a little bit careful about that. But we're looking at, say, in my F1 course, we write CNC probe, G&M code stuff. That's algorithms. Okay, we're looking at data and we're manipulating the data. That's digital technology.
So you've drawn some bows, long bows, I guess.
Well, they're not actually long, because G&M code is an algorithm. That's exactly what it is.
What about electronics? Could you use colour codes as part of that process as well? Or is that drawing the long bow?
Yeah, probably longish,
Yeah.
but not impossible.
It's a code.
It is a code.
Yeah.
If it's got step by steps, it's an algorithm. And then if you can interpret those steps and edit those steps, and then you've got that one done, I reckon. Is it?
Steve, isn't the gist of the document that basically schools to year 8 need to be providing students with both experiences, so they're doing technology and digital technologies, two separate?
Yeah. Well, I don't think that. The spirit of the document is that it has to be covered. How you cover that would never be assessed. In other words, who's going to come around to your school and say, how have you how have you done that and that? Your line manager might ask you those questions, and it'd be my job as coordinator to map the whole thing so that it is possible. But as soon as they get past year 8, there's no curriculum guarantee, is there? There's no mandated section after that's all over. So we're only talking up to year 8. The biggest problem we've got is the wonderful primary teachers that do such a great job are so disparate. In other words, we might have kids coming from 12 different primary schools to our school. How are we ever going to map what they are able to do? Because it depends a lot on site by site as to what facilities they've got, what teaching strengths they've got. So one day we might be able to have a curriculum guarantee at the end of year 8, but it's a fair way off because no one's ever told me how we can actually predict what's going to happen in the primary school. And eventually, as the document goes through primary, we'll get better at that. In a situation where you've got, say, grade 7, because this document had its foundation in schools where kids in year 7 were in the high school, which made things a lot easier. Then they're very much easier to do exactly what you said.
I see you get kids coming in who might want to be doing, say, a semester of programming in Scratch or something like that, year 7 or 8.
Yeah.
You're not going to satisfy them in the design technology course calling, a CAD program algorithmic. It's just not going to happen. And I think schools need to start thinking about, especially schools with dissolved IT within the curriculum, need to start thinking about how they can implement both back into the curriculum. That comes down to pinching time from.
That's the issue, is that how is the school going to give you time, because everyone else has got to have their bit as well.
Well, how much teeth does ACARA give you that
Yeah.
said this is compulsory?
Yeah, exactly. And one of I think I was talking to Larry about this just before we started. The big issue for me is not whether or not we can make ACARA work for design and technology, because I don't have any issue with that at all. You're gonna kill it. You're gonna do fantastic with it. But it's how each site will assimilate design or technologies into the pie that's got to be divided up. I haven't got an answer for that, but I think switched on curriculum leaders within each school and the principals who know that we're doing a great job for our clients in general will realise that we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. However, I haven't got an answer for that, and I've also talked to Larry to say it'd be wonderful as a Design and Technology Teachers Association if we could have an argument or a stance, a position about how we might fit a model that you could take to our school to say, this is where geog fits, this is where science fits, this is where English fits, this is where maths fits, this is where design and technology fits, that might work as a generic, as a standalone thing. For a person who's straight out of uni, that Denise has looked after so brilliantly, and Bob and Larry and everybody, but still pretty wet under the ears, gone to Kalkultabi. It's got no idea how to argue their case. So it'd be great if we could have such a document, but I'm not sure how far down the track it would be. Like a model that you could take to the curriculum deputy and say, well, this is how it could work. That doesn't screw us over, would be the point, I think. So just quickly about the digital technologies thing. Yeah, there are some challenges there. There are some challenges, but I've thought about it a lot in the bigger picture and figuring that we're not ever going to have enough curriculum time to satisfy the digital technology side of it, or the technology side of it really, in year 8 necessarily. That I haven't got an answer for that, accepting that we're just going to do the best we can with the time that we've got. Otherwise, you go to the curriculum deputy and say, we've got all these digital technologies, descriptors that we've got to meet, we've got all these technology descriptors got to meet, so they can come down to technology for 4 days out of the 5, and on the 5th day they can go and do phys ed or something like that. So I don't know, I haven't got an answer for that. Izzy? Got me.
Well, in the maths curriculum, traditionally programming as specified in ACARA is done in the maths curriculum.
Yeah.
Most universities do programming in the maths department.
Yeah.
We use that technology for our tools like CAD, CAM or electronics or whatever.
Yeah.
So how come we've been lumbered with programming which is making our curriculum pretty tight.
Yeah, look-
Whereas the maths department is doing none of that.
The short answer to that is that a lot of the curriculum came from the Eastern Seaboard, and Larry might better back me up here, but the meetings that I went to very early on, a couple of years ago, were dominated by people who thought that information technology was the saviour of the world, who were so outdated and so away from what kids want in schools or need in schools now, that somehow we've got through to the point where it's better now than it ever has been. It's still a bit out of whack. We don't need to teach kids about networking unless they want to know about it. Just like we don't have to teach kids about HTML or code anymore either, because we've got Dreamweaver. We'll teach them about the design principles. That's what we can teach them about, what makes a good website, not how to construct it anymore. That's why the digital technology side of it is dated before it ever gets started. It should all be about designing the product and using the product effectively and responsibly. That's where they've got it wrong.
We've
But-
taken it out, because that's now going to be, all the bling is going to be your arts anyways.
Yeah.
You'd have to do it, so if you want to look at, really, if you want to look properly, you want to try and merge those two together, and you need more time again, because you need to do a bit of programming and bling it up with a bit of media arts.
Yeah.
So, there's that time. So it's about going to your arts faculties, to the technology faculty, trying to pull that time together, try and get a semester.
That whole cross-curricular thing, in a great world, would be relatively easy to do. And again, if you're at Kalkudaby or Orroroo, where I spent 12 years in the area school there and loved it, you could sit down at recess time with your mates or something like that, where all the staff are together, and you could throw a couple of words in about, oh, why don't we try this and why don't we try that? Oh yeah, that sounds okay, and then go on talking about footy. Next time you meet, you've got that same opportunity to be collegiate, to sort out things that you don't have. In a big school, it's so hard to sit down with the IT person, because they usually spread all over the school teaching a whole pile of things. It's really hard to do that cross-curricular. I mean, in a perfect world, you could devise a really nice unit of work, couldn't you, that did the trick? And maybe that's what we should be striving for as well. But yeah, so if you want any of these, I won't go through it anymore, but they're all here if you want to have a quick look at the hard copies. If you want any of these courses, again, just email me and I can send them back to you. Just be mindful of the fact that we're all learners. I'm a learner, full stop. We're not saying these are wonderful, we're just saying these are our steps forward. And I know we'll all grow and interpret as we go on, won't we? Just like we do with the SAFE thing, every time I look at that model I showed you before, I think of better ways to do it, or different ways to do it. So we'll be thinking the same thing with the ACARA documents, is that they will grow as we grow. So it's stephen.reed@brighton.sa.edu.au with a PH. That's it, and thanks for